This is another one of those stories that really should be all over the news. Employers across the U.S. cut nearly 950,000 jobs this year through September, the largest number of layoffs since 2020, according to outplacement from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. Job cuts could surpass more than 1 million in 2025, the group forecasts. The layoffs this year, although elevated, remain well below the massive workforce reductions in 2020, where the pandemic shuttered businesses across the nation, leading to 2 million layoffs through September of that year. The rise in layoffs comes as the labor market has stalled in recent months, with employers also sharply scaling back their hiring plans, according to labor data. Companies now expect to bring on 58% fewer workers for the rest of the year compared with their projections a year ago, the firm found. Previous periods with this many job cuts occurred either during recessions or, as was the case 2005-2006, during the first wave of automation that cost jobs in manufacturing and technology, said Andy Challenger, Senior Vice President, Labor Expert for Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, in a statement. The government shutdown could lead to more job cuts, with the White House Office of Management and Budget last week telling federal agencies to consider layoffs during a closure. The report comes as the monthly government jobs report, scheduled to be released on October 3rd, is likely to be delayed due to this week's government shutdown. Economists are forecasting that employers added 50,000 jobs last month, according to financial data from FactSet. In the absence of the government's monthly jobs reports, other measures of the labor market's health are drawing more attention from economists. On Wednesday, ADP said that payrolls at private employers declined by 32,000 jobs in September. However, some signs suggest that the pace of layoffs is easing, with Challenger's data showing that businesses announced roughly 54,000 job cuts in September, a 37% drop from the nearly 86,000 cuts announced in August. The Federal Reserve is monitoring the labor market for signs of weakness, with Fed Chair Jerome Powell last month citing the headwinds facing workers as the primary reason the central bank lowered its benchmark interest rate by 0.25 percentage points. The Fed is penciling in 2 additional rate cuts for the remainder of 2025. A decline in borrowing costs for businesses and consumers could help bolster the job market, Challenger said. As interest rates fall, businesses have more flexibility to expand and hire more workers. Right now, we're dealing with a stagnating labor market, cost increases, and a transformative new technology. With rate cuts on the way, we may see some stabilizing in the job market in the fourth quarter, but other factors could keep employers planning layoffs or holding off hiring, Challenger said. The largest number of layoffs in 5 years since the pandemic. And sure, it's not as bad as it was back then. But I can't see a scenario where with 900,000 layoffs being good. And now you hear this line about the employers, because I've talked about how at the start of the year it seemed like a lot of places were hiring, at least in terms of having interviews and being willing to kind of like play the game of appearing to be trying to expand their number of people working for them. But over the past month or so, it has been basically a dry well, and I have my own theories about that. I've openly speculated that I think a lot of these job postings on different job sites and forums are not real. And even the few times where you get an interview with that company or place, they could intentionally just like be planning to not hire you, just again to meet that quota of appearing to be expanding with these, again, like the more stuff that's like performative rather than actual job openings. But if this is to be believed, with the, what is it, 58% of employers that are saying that they're planning on cutting back their hiring by that amount, it's not boasting well for anyone that's looking for work, I can tell you that. I mean, that's, if it were 10%, 20%, whatever, but 58% fewer workers for the rest of the year. So this means that compared to last year, if you were looking for a job, because I was hired 2 years ago around this time by that restaurant I was with. But if I were to have been, I actually was, if you were looking for a job and had trouble getting one last year like I did, then you would have been you are now almost three out of five times more likely to just find nothing, right? Because it's 58 is almost 60%. So you are there is now an almost 60% increase in the unlikelihood that you'll be able to get any damn job. It's nuts. It's amazing how we can just casually have almost a million people be fired, and you'll see on the TV for a few minutes, but that's about it. What I'm really concerned about is how it affects the rest of the economy, because as I've said before, the more people who are not working, either through being laid off or not being able to find a job, means they're less likely to go out and buy things, and it's going to have that trickle down effect of other places and businesses not being able to sustain themselves because the customers are not having any income. Oh boy. And what's even worse is that no matter how bad these numbers get, you're always going to have those same irrational, lying bastards that will tell you if you want a job, it's easy to get one. We will have labor numbers like this where almost a million people have been laid off, which isn't even counting, that's not even the headline. That's not, excuse me, that's not even mentioning the fact that now employers are projecting to hire almost 60% less people toward the end of this year as they were last year. And you will have people that when you can't get a job, oh, it's your fault, you did something wrong. It's like, hell, most of these places are playing games. It is that simple. They're not hiring. They're scaling back, whatever you want to call it. They're having hiring freezes, and it's just going to keep making the economy worse and worse. Oh, and wasting more and more people's time that are actually seeking work. Let's not forget about that lovely gem.